What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So yesterday I went and picked up an 0607 GSX-R 600. I believe it's a 2007 to be specific. So the guy told me what had happened was he was riding and it kind of just like lost power, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure many of you know, if you have had these bikes, that one of the major problems is the rectifier and stator. So I'm assuming that's what the issue is off the top. But we're gonna have to get into it. So I did take off the air box, did all that. This thing is incredibly full of leaves and dust and just covered in outside weather. So it was sitting outside. I did already order a fairing kit for it. If I end up not being able to use this bike, like the motor's bad, I could sell the motor still and then actually, you know, rebuild it. I have an extra couple engines sitting around for this thing, 750s and 600s. So either way, it'll get running again, look really nice. But for now, what I'm gonna do is test this rectifier, test the stator. There's a way to do that with resistance and all of that, and then, you know, put a new battery in there, see if we can get her running. So I actually picked this thing up for $1,300. The fairing kit that I just ordered, I usually go through NT. It's fast shipping, like 2 to 3 day shipping. I think that was $480 out the door. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty profitable when it comes to this thing. I picked it up just for that because I know that I can flip it or part it out and still make the profit that I need. So I'm gonna kind of show you what I do when I get a project like this in. We'll do a part 1, probably 2 and 3 of the rebuild here. And essentially all I do with a rebuild is go around, make sure it looks nice, get everything going, make sure it's safe, right? I test the brakes, I change the fluids, I go through and make sure that the feel's new. Pretty much anything to make the bike, you know, run good again. So spark plugs, like literally all of it. I don't want to give a bike out to somebody and sell it and then, you know, get a call saying they wrecked because something was wrong. That's not something I want to do, especially when it's, you know, people's lives that are on the line. So what we're gonna do is kind of go through this bike. I'm gonna show you up close what it looks like, give you a little idea of how it is, and you'll definitely see what I'm talking about, and then we'll go ahead and test that stator and stuff. I have a feeling it's the rectifier, and usually if the rectifier goes out, you'll definitely burn that stator up. I have extra parts for these bikes to probably build a few of them, to be honest with you. So we're not hurting on parts, but you know, just the fairing kit is what we'll have to wait on. And yeah, it has a clean title as well. So anyway, let's get into it. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, guys, so you can probably tell that thing is dusty as hell. So what I'm gonna do, I think the first plan here is to get a battery in that has some juice. After that, I just want to make sure that the bike at least gets power. I want to try and crank the bike over to make sure that the engine's trying to turn over. I will check the connections from the rectifier and stator because a lot of times on these bikes they actually burn up. I have extra harnesses so I can, you know, I can at least get the connectors replaced and stuff like that. But the next step after all of that, after I can verify that this bike will turn on, etc., is I'm gonna take these throttle bodies off, plug the cylinder areas right there with some shop towels, and I'm gonna clean the crap out of this engine because it is just insanely dusty. I don't want to spray water in there, so I'm just gonna use some engine cleaner and make this thing look nice. It looks like we also had a scrape on the stator cover. Let me see if I can get you down there. There is leaves and everything on this, so I'm gonna probably sand that down, repaint that. With OEM covers, I try to just fix them before replacing them because they are quite expensive these days to find a nice one, and aftermarket ones suck on these. So that's kind of my plan. Like I said, battery in, see if it powers up at all. If it does, I'm going to try and crank it. If there is no power, I'm going to check that 30 amp fuse in the back on the starter relay, and then you know, hopefully that ECU isn't fried. And then check the connections to the rectifier. But it sounds like the rectifier is burnt from what he said, but usually on the back of the rectifier, I'll show you, you can actually see lines And if this one has it, I'll definitely show you guys. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna try and get this thing going, and I'll show you step by step. So here we go. Get that out of the way. I'll probably end up taking a shop vac, trying to get these leaves out as well, or air, just spraying it out and then using a shop vac. But something. There's a lot of leaves, a lot of dust, but at least this will give us some time to kind of clean her up, get her looking mint. I like to make sure that the bikes are clean and presentable, because I don't want to buy a bike that's completely dirty and, you know, they're like, oh, this is a $5,000 bike. Well, it might be a $5,000 bike, but if you continue to sell bikes that don't look like a $5,000 bike and they look like it's clapped out, then clearly it's worth what it is to that person that sees it in the shape that they do. So, okay, battery is in. Okay, we have power. We have power. So, let's see if this fuel pump turns on. We know that the bike has power, that's great. So, when we hit this kill switch, we should hear the pump prime. Hey! Okay, I did hear a weird noise in the back. That's the servo. So we're gonna have to delete that. But let's see if this baby starts. So, clutch in. And it runs. It runs. It's running really rough. We have the air box off. There we go. There we go. So, alright, so a little update. I pretty much disassembled most of the fairings, the front wheel, I took that off. It wasn't spinning, and the left caliper was very hard to get off, so I'm assuming there's either an issue with the piston there or something was hung up. So when I get back to that, I'll be able to see what's going on more when I get that wheel back on with the caliper. I took the airbox off, took the throttle bodies off, completely like just went crazy with cleaning. I found some engine cleaner online that I was using, and I'll show you guys, but it makes a world of a difference. So I essentially took everything apart, took everything off, and started coating the bike, and it actually makes it look a little like shiny. It's like an oil almost. It's engine cleaner, but with metal, it shines everything up. So the bike is literally a 360 from what it was. And so now what I'm gonna do is, this thing is sputtering a little bit when I'm giving it gas. So I'm assuming this thing, since it was sitting outside, it hasn't ran for a long time. That tells me either, you know, it's spark or fuel, and we need to find out what is going on there. I have an extra pair of throttle bodies that are for a 600 that'll work. So I may start there, and then I also have another tank and fuel pump. So I think what I'm gonna do is probably take the throttle bodies off and replace them with the ones I have, because I know the ones I have are good and clean, and then I'll just use the ones I have. And then I'll go ahead and you know, empty the fuel out of this, put new fuel in, and we'll see how she runs. I'm also gonna go run to the parts store and buy some fuel additive, just to clean out, you know, everything that's in there. But on these bikes, the fuel rail and injectors are on the throttle body, so I don't have to worry too much. So what I'm gonna do is spark plugs first, because it's basically already apart. I did put the air box back on, but let me actually give you guys a close-up. Hold on one sec. Sorry, the shop is pretty dirty. I went crazy with cleaning. Sorry. There we go. So I literally went through and cleaned everything, like the airbox, the frame. Let me see if I can get some light. Show you guys. So it just really shined it up insanely. So you know, I did the swing arm, the inside, the outside, the subframe. I took everything out, took the ECU out, did everything. The tank I haven't touched yet, but you could see that it's pretty damn clean, so that's nice. Yeah, so the next step, like I said, is going to be spark plugs. So I'll get this airbox back off, and then I'm gonna do the plugs. The ones I run are NGK, the Iridium ones. So I think they're C9RE or something like that is the model number. I actually have some left over from a different project, so that works out perfectly. Spark plugs first, then fuel, but just because it's a symptom when I'm gassing it, so let me actually show you. I'll turn the bike on. Oh, let's see. Okay, so let it prime. Sounds fine. When I give it gas, it wants to die. Okay, so my first thought was, okay, it's because the airbox wasn't in. So I actually held the hose with my thumb, and nope, still doing it. So since the tack is off, I'm not actually like seeing if I'm getting any code, so I'll probably plug that in and just see. But I know initially there was no code popping up or anything like that, so I'm assuming it's air, fuel, or spark. And because I cleaned out the airbox, I kind of eliminated that. It's possible that it's a sensor or something, but that's kind of telling me we have either bad spark or bad fuel, and I'm assuming it's probably both at this point. So that's why we're gonna do plugs. That's why we're gonna do the throttle body swap, new fuel. Because yeah, like, I mean, especially if I'm gonna sell this bike, we may as well do it anyway, but I think we're gonna be able to fix it with that. So anyway, guys, let's get into the spark plugs. I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit of light on this thing, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, we're gonna take all these plugs out, and we are going to replace them. Like I said, I had some extra plugs already, so that'll be nice. They're actually the same plugs. It looks like they were running NGK on this one as well. So that's whoever put them in too. It's not, they weren't too tight. So whoever put these in knew what they were doing, because those are not OEM plugs. So that's good to know. A lot of times when I go in and do plugs, they're either insanely tight or insanely loose, and it's just not, it's never a good deal. When you get a bike that hasn't been properly worked on, because then you got to go in and redo everything, and it's just a pain in the ass. So I've noticed with bikes, you need to take these off the tops if they have them. You need just the thread part. So these unscrew. Sometimes they're on there a lot more, or like way more torque. So just take these little caps off, and you want it just to be the thread there. That way the coil can sit on it. So just for future reference, if you do have plugs that come with these, take that off, make sure the gap's right, boom, done deal. Getting the fuel out, that way we could put some fuel additive in, and then make sure this is empty, ready to go, and then we're gonna fill it up with new fuel. Bad fuel, cars and bikes don't usually like it, so if it's been sitting for a while, usually you want to change that out and just get some new stuff in there. So I will update you in just a few. Alright, so new plugs are in, coils are back on. Let's give this thing a test. I also put fuel additive in. I try to empty most of the fuel and put as much new that I can. I just filled up a water bottle. So we're gonna try and start this thing. We're gonna actually, let's let it prime a few times, because we just put new fuel. So we're gonna prime it just a few times, get that fuel pump sucking everything in. The fuel pump might also be dirty too. It's likely that there was a lot of fuel in there for a long time, so we might have to switch out the pump and the throttle bodies, which have the injectors on them, but we'll find out. So that sounds way better already. So let's let it warm up for a second. We'll let her warm up. It sounds way better already. Also, what I'm going to do is plug in the front harness here. I'm going to grab the tack. Okay, so I'm going to plug that hose with my hand. So we may have some clogged injectors and stuff. Grab that air box, plug her in, and see if that changes anything, but it is kind of dying still when I gas it, but way better than last time. It's not completely dying like it was. So I'm gonna get the air box in just in case and make sure, and then you know, we might also have like issues with the battery and stuff like that, so we might have to switch that out. I'm gonna have to basically go through everything that makes the bike run. We're talking electrical, right? So make sure the battery's good, air, fuel, and then spark, which we already know we replaced the spark plugs, but it is possible one of those coils are bad. So like I said, we're gonna have to go one by one, make sure. So yeah, let's get the airbox in first and then go from there. All right guys, so I just went ahead and did a little test. Basically what you do is you grab a wire. This one's actually super thick, so I would suggest one smaller. And you go to your port on the back of the bike here. Let me show you. So on these bikes, it's this little white one here. It's a little plug. It usually has a black cap on it. So what you do is there is a white wire with a red stripe and a black wire with green tracers on it. You take the wire and you put it in basically like this. You just go in both ports, boom. And that's if you have a F1 light. You'll actually see the code pop up on the bike. On the tack there, right where the temperature is. So this one actually was the set valve of the exhaust, but we still needed to do all of the above, which was the gas, the spark plugs, all of that. So I usually do a tune-up first thing on any bike that I'm rebuilding. So what that is, let me bring you over here. It's very common that these get deleted, and you have to pull a wire on the ECU. Give me 1 second, Jesus. I have this thing on the tripod, not going well. So this is your set valve here. This is the actuator. So this is a motor that when you turn the bike on, these run to the exhaust and it opens and closes the butterfly valve based on the cable. And you know, when you throttle, it opens. So since we're gonna delete this 10 millimeter, this 10 millimeter are gonna come off. You can get servo deletes where you basically just plug it into here and it deletes it without having to touch the ECU. But on these bikes, I believe it's the black connector on the ECU, and it's the second row, I think. I think it's the 5th one over. It should be like a brown wire, I believe. And all you do is take that out. I will verify before, just to make sure everybody knows. I don't want to pull the wrong one, but I'm pretty sure that's it. So you have to make sure everything's off. I would suggest taking one of the terminals off the battery, probably the positive, because this can ground to metal and stuff. So take the positive off before you do that, because you can short something out and then you'll be screwed with a burnt ECU. And like I said, they are pricey, not cheap. So I'm going to actually remove the servo, unplug it, and bring the cables with me. This actually deletes, you know, weight as well, so you kind of get two things in one. And then we're gonna see if it runs good. So it definitely could be running the way it is, because it's sensing that this actuator is not good, and it's telling it it's at a certain angle with the throttle when it's actually full. Definitely a possibility. So let's go ahead, take this off, figure out which wire it is on the ECU, and we'll see if this thing runs way better than it was. All right, so let's get it started and see if that F1 turns on. If not, we know we are good to go. So no more F1 light. You can see on the jack down there, it's not on anymore. So that means that connector worked. So we're gonna let her warm up for a minute. So it looks we're at 130 degrees. So we still got a little bog. But definitely not cutting out like it was, so that servo fixed it there. And you can see this fluid is nasty. So we need to change this because I'm not gonna give somebody a bike with brakes like that at all. What up, guys? So I did find the issue with the brakes here. So that bottom left caliper actually wasn't locking up. The fluid was insanely dirty, so I was like, okay, well, let me bleed this thing. I opened the bleeder valve, and there was no fluid coming out, and I was like, that's kind of weird. The brakes were sort of working beforehand, but it was intermittent. And then at the end, when I was taking the lever off, the piston in the master actually got stuck in. So my solution to that was I tried to like hitting it with the screwdriver inside just to see if it would unfreeze. Sprayed it with WD-40, didn't unfreeze. So I went ahead and removed the banjo bolt, and the 2 8mm on the front over here. And I took the master off, replaced the master with another one that I had, and it's working good now. I also went ahead and bled them while I was down there. That way it's already ready to go. So basically, the calipers are now working. I can spin the wheel freely. I can hit the brakes and it stops the wheel. So beforehand, what was happening was I would move the wheel and it would just like aggressively kind of stop after half a second. Those pistons in the caliper had really bad fluid, and then the master was probably getting stuck halfway, and so only half of the piston was releasing because the master piston was halfway stuck as well. So good thing we figured that out. That is very important. Those are front brakes, probably the most important besides your wheels being tightened and adjusted on the motorcycle. So what I'm gonna do now is make sure that front wheel goes on good, make sure it spins again. I'm gonna go through it a few times, and then I'm gonna keep hitting the brakes, make sure everything is working with that front tire. I do not want to sell this bike and somebody wrecks because the front brakes lock up. That actually happened in my first wreck at 70 miles an hour, snapped my arm in half. So I know the feeling, and I do not want anybody to endure the same pain that I had, especially when it's something that I could have prevented. That would definitely make me feel really bad. So servo's deleted. We got the wire out of the ECU, and yeah, this thing's almost done. I did order a fairing kit. I will send you a link. I order it through NT Fairings. There's a guy I messaged specifically on Facebook Messenger, and it's very quick shipping, usually within a week, and they fit really good. So yeah, this thing's almost done. I'm gonna probably get the headlight mounted up because it's a couple screws, and just make sure it's clean, ready to go. Change the antifreeze, change the oil, and yeah, this thing is pretty mint. I mean, it's gonna be a very nice bike. So I think I ordered red and black or red and white fairings, so it'll go really good with the bike. And then I may order some red bar ends and stuff like that just to make it look pretty nice. But you know, it has ASV levers. It runs really good now that we fixed the fuel and all of that, the servo. So yeah, we're gonna get the tail lights off of the old fairings. Also the screws on there, because when you order fairing kits, usually they don't come with bolts. So those are very, very nice to have. And then we probably will need to pop a new chain on this thing and get her cleaned up just one final time. Yeah, and I think we're good to go. Anyway, guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and put the tank down here, start it one more time now that I don't have to mess with anything around the engine. It's not hot. And then we're gonna see how this thing runs real quick one more time and give her a go.